All right. Welcome back, everyone, to Civ and Chill as the extremely dramatic Civ music plays in the background. How's everyone doing? I'm doing, I would say, below average. I learned that Mercury's in retrograde, which didn't we just get finished with the Mercury in retrograde? Now Mercury's back to fuck my shit up. Um, I won't go into too much detail, but my shit's been fucked up like the last few days. We get to build a religion right off the bat here, which is crazy. This is great. What I'm sure whichever religion I pick, someone is gonna be offended. Let's go with Shinto. Oh, we can customize it. I'm gonna introversion is our religion. We're gonna spread the religion of introversion, everyone. Oh, Tithe is a great is a great belief. I can't believe it's still here. I honestly can't believe we got a religion. I thought for sure turn 121 we weren't getting a religion. I'd already given up on it, but this is goated. And I think monasteries are pretty good too. We go with monasteries. Dude, I can't believe we got a religion. Anyway, let's dive into today's topic. Today I want to talk to y'all about art versus content, because I feel like, hold on, I'm getting my notes up, which I forgot to do. I feel like as a quote unquote artist myself, whatever the fuck that means, I'm interested in like the distinction between art and content, because like I guess in my mind, like art is quote unquote better than content. It's like more meaningful, and we'll dive into, what that all means in a little bit. But yeah, that's just why I'm interested in talking about it. And then, even if you're not an artist, I feel like we all consume so much stuff. It's worthwhile to like get an understanding of like what the hell, like think about what the hell we're all like, spending 12 hours of screen time every day watching, and like think about like what it is. It's like when you go to the grocery store, like every now and then, every like 6 months, you gotta like look at like one ingredient list on like the back of like the tomato sauce jar, even though like when I look at the ingredients, I'm like, well, it has like 500 preservatives I've never heard of, but I'm still gonna buy it because I have no other choice. So it's worthwhile just to like think about like what's in the stuff we're consuming, whether it's food or it's the stuff we see on our screens. So yeah, let's just get right into it. First, we got to talk about like, one of the most elusive questions that has haunted I don't know, mankind since a caveman first dipped his hand in like an elk's blood and put his palm print on a cave, which is, what the hell is art? So, about 100 years ago, Marcel Duchamp, I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it, I'm sorry, all my French art nerds, Marcel Duchamp taught us that art can be anything. Art can be a fucking urinal that you just say, this is art. So ever since then, art has been dead. Because anything can be art. So it's actually kind of, I wouldn't say like a pointless exercise to define what is art, but like art, like, I mean, I can try, right? I would say like art, going beyond the like art can be anything, like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock thing. Like, art, I feel like, to me, is something that like truly moves you either emotionally, mentally, spiritually, I guess physically we could throw in there. Art is just something that speaks to your soul, I guess, is how I would define it. But once again, it's very subjective, right? It's very subjective because you can look at I mean, you could look at a Taylor Swift album, for example, right? To one person, to me, I would say a Taylor Swift album is art. You know, she's putting her heart and soul into her music, except Life of a Showgirl. Sorry, Life of a Showgirl. She's putting her heart and soul into the music, and like, it truly makes you feel something, you know. Versus, I would say, I mean, but to someone else, they might feel nothing when they listen to a Taylor Swift album, and then that is not art to them. You know, does art have to be something aesthetically pleasing? You know, does art have to be like one of those beautiful paintings that are very lifelike and a portrait of someone? Or can art just be, you know, like Van Gogh, like Impressionism? Does it have to not look like real life? Or can it even just be a bunch of squiggles on a freaking bunch of squiggles on a on a canvas? Or maybe art could just be a freaking giant block of red paint on the wall. You know what I mean? Like art, you know, like they say, like the freaking cliche, art is in, or beauty's in the eye of beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So it's pretty hard to define exactly what art is, because, you know, what moves one person emotionally, spiritually, mentally, whatever, might be different than someone else. So maybe instead of defining art, we can define art in contrast to content, which is kind of getting to the crux of what I want to talk about today. You know, content is a word I feel like that's really been picking up in, like, you know, since the 2010s and the last decade. Like, content has become like a word we've all become accustomed to. Versus, like, I feel like before the 2010s, we didn't think about like stuff we consume as like content, right? And I'll get into like what I mean by content in a little bit. But I just think it's interesting that like linguistically, like we started all using content to describe like, you know, podcasts, YouTube videos, TikTok videos, even like well, I wouldn't say we define music as content, right? We don't think of like a Taylor Swift album as quote unquote content, which I think is interesting, which I think may be something that is able to key us into what is art and what is content. And then I think that is useful for us to think about, because then, you know, if we're not consuming art all the time, which is, you know, I'm not going to sit here from my ivory tower and tell you that like you should be reading Chang Ray Lee novels all day every day instead of watching YouTube shorts. But it's just like, you know, it's interesting to me to think about that difference, you know, because before, I would say like before, like very recently in this internet age, when you like read a book or listened to a song or, I don't know, fucking watched a movie, no one was like, oh yeah, I'm consuming all this content, you know. Maybe people didn't think that it was art, but it was maybe entertainment, which is not, you know, that's maybe a step below art. But then I would say content is even one step further below entertainment. Like when I think about content, like the first thing that comes to mind to me is like, I don't know, like random podcasts about like, basically they talk about a topic that could be summarized in 5 minutes in like 50 minutes. Oh my god, I'm afraid that I'm describing Minecraft therapy and Civ and Chill, but hopefully it's not. And maybe I'll get a bit deeper into like my own personal like stakes when it comes to art versus content, because like I personally hope that I'm making, you know, if not art, at least not just like mindless content. You know what I mean? But like content to me is like, you know, really unnecessarily long podcasts, like TikTok, Reels, YouTube Shorts. It's like all that shit that's like kind of like meaningless, I would say, and like there to kind of just fill. Oh, I can't believe this motherfucker's here, bro. Kind of just fill the time, and like I would say like content. Like when I consume content, like I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I don't. I consume content, but like when I think about like why I consume content, it's because I don't want to like sit there with my empty brain and like think about life. I would like my brain to be empty, please. And maybe that like hints to some like modern issue with the modern, like, everyone in the modern age has very low attention spans, very we're all like probably a little more depressed than we were like a generation or two ago. Um, so maybe it speaks to something with like the modern psyche, the modern dilemma that like we all feel like we have to fill like the empty the emptiness in our minds, or like fill all not fill the emptiness in our minds, like fill all the bad stuff in our minds with like endless amounts of content to like numb ourselves, as opposed to like consuming art, which would make us think more deeply about like the capitalist hellscape we all live in, or like the myriad, like, let's not talk about cap. Let's have one video where I don't like roast capitalism, or like, but art, art makes you think about your life and like your problems, and like just think deeply about like everything. And maybe in like a world where like we're constantly bombarded with, horrible headlines in the news and like endless genocides and wars and the American dream is dead, and a world of seemingly endless problems, like, yeah, maybe like we all feel comforted by content, which is why we consume it so much. I certainly feel comforted by content, which is why, I'll listen to the same YouTube video like literally 50 times because I I got nothing better to do, I guess. But yeah, I guess maybe that's why we all consume so much content. Um, but then again, like I feel like maybe um, art versus content is the wrong way to look at it, because like I was saying before, like, I have this idea in my mind that like art is quote unquote better than I can't believe we're going down the patronage tree, and I've found zero city states. Um, what do I want, bro? Let's get frickin'. I mean, we might as well get patronage and try to get scholasticism. I feel like we gotta abandon ship with this patronage thing. Yeah, in my mind, art's better than content, but once again, art's subjective to everyone. And even content can be subjective to everyone. Maybe you think, maybe I think a really maybe I think like a podcast is content, but you think the podcast is art, which so maybe art and content is the wrong way to think about it, but because they're like the same like medium, right? It's kind of just like whether or not you think the art slash content slash entertainment or whatever is like good, right? And then it's like if it's really good, it ascends to the level of art. If it's like bad, if it's just like slop, then it's just content. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I feel like I guess what I'm kind of like maybe the issue isn't like exactly that um, there's too much content, right? Because like I'm sure like freaking in Renaissance times there were like there's too much like garbage that the masses are consuming. They should be like reading the Bible or something, right? Um, Augustus Caesar's plotting against me. I mean, yeah, I got to go to war with Caesar. I knew that. I got to get my army up too, bro. This guy's going to fuck me up. I thought I was building... Why am I building a chariot archer? I wanted to build a comp bowman. Oh my god. There's a lot going on in the game. Anyway, I think like what my issue is with like content, you can kind of see it in like popular culture and like how like popular culture, I don't know why I'm saying popular culture. Pop culture is just art, right? Or it's like, you know, it's movies, music, TV shows, books. It's just like art that's popular, hence pop culture, you know, popular culture. And it's probably always been this way where the point, at least in a capitalist society, where the point of pop culture is to make money. But I feel like in recent times, pop culture has trended more towards content than art. A recent example of this would be the MCU. Not that the original MCU was art or that the point of it was to like make us think deeply about our lives. The point of the MCU has always been to make money. But I feel like, you know, in recent times, everyone's been complaining that there's too much stuff. There's too much stuff in the MCU. And I would say that's where it crosses the line into content territory. And then when we're all just consuming content, it's like we're not even thinking about why we're consuming it or if it's worth our time or like anything. It's like, what's that Red Letter Media quote? It's like, don't think, just consume product and buy more product. So I feel like that is kind of, you know, where pop culture has been trending. You could see in the MCU. I would say like a really cool, like an example you can kind of see over the decades is with the Karate Kid, right? Once again, not that the original Karate Kid movies were about making art, deep, meaningful art. You know, it's about fucking a white boy from California doing karate. But, you know, I feel like before... What are we doing? Construct the road. Move up. Go here. You know, okay, sorry. I'm really losing my train of thought constantly trying to play this game. You know, but the original Karate Kid movies, at least I would say, have some soul, have some heart, where like you could make the argument that they're art, at least, you know what I mean? Versus like, you know, think about the Karate Kid reboot with was it Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith, which is obviously just like a cash grab to like cash in on nostalgia. And then it goes even further with like Cobra Kai and then Karate Kid Legends. Dude, I watched like the first 30 minutes of Karate Kid Legends on Netflix. It was horrible, dude. Like it was so obviously like just like content, you know, like something there just for us all to consume so that Sony Pictures can make a lot of money. Which, I mean, I guess that's life, right? I guess that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. But I don't know. It's just kind of like kind of disheartening to me, I guess, that we live in a world of just like content, consume, like mindlessly consume. And I guess I feel like it like takes something away from like all of us, you know, like where we're not like thinking about like our lives and like this rock we're all on in space and like why are we here and like all this stuff. I guess like this is the exact same like argument like freaking Catholics use as to like why society is adrift and that like it's because we're like a godless society that doesn't like, you know, is like addicted to like our hedonistic easy pleasures. I'm not going that far. I'm not saying like I'm not saying we all have to become Catholic, but I do think like we lose something when we're all just consuming content. And obviously, like I'm guilty of this. I consume a lot of content. In fact, you could argue I make content. And I guess this is where I'll talk about like my own personal like thoughts about this is like, I would say like I have an artist's like heart, right? Like I've been saying for like however many years, like I gotta write my book. Like I feel like I feel like the world like perceives me as this like STEM guy because I have a CS degree and I had one job in tech and I went to a STEM school, that everyone's like, oh, this guy's like a STEM guy. Also because I'm Asian, there's just a lot of things where, and I'm introverted. I just like very obviously like fit the mold for like what you would imagine like a STEM guy looks like. But I feel like I have an artist's heart. I'm not gonna try and argue that with you. Just take my word for it. But yeah, I guess for me, it's like I always struggle with that. And that's why, like, over the last few years, like, obviously it would be very easy for me to, like, just sit down and, like, make a Minecraft therapy video or, like, a video where I just play a video game for, like, 30 minutes and just do that, like, every day. You know what I mean? It's not hard for me to fucking play a video game and just fucking ramble about my life. You know what I mean? That's I could become a fucking streamer. That's what streamers do, right? Is just produce endless amounts of content. But I feel like the reason I didn't want to do that is because I was afraid of making content. I don't want to like. I feel like the world has too much content, and like it doesn't need like more content that to like numb all our brains. You know what I mean? So I feel like as a person with an artist's heart, I won't go so far as to call myself an artist because, it's kind of pretentious. But as someone with an artist's heart, that's something I kind of struggle with, because when I create something, I'm like, is this just content, or does it rise to the level of like art, which is what I want it to be? But maybe that's like just not a useful like the way to think about it, because like thinking about it like that just like ground my like, it's like overthinking, right? It's like, who the fuck cares if it's art or content, at least when it comes to like what I'm making. Like the important thing about creation and like creating stuff for me is just that like I do the process of creating. It's almost like not even about like the end product, and like whether it's content or art or just like a really long essay in my notes app that no one will ever see. It's like more about like, expressing something in my soul that is important to me. So yeah, but I don't know. I had this whole like rant about art and content, and like I do think that we should all think critically about the stuff we consume and like why we're consuming it, right? Because like I've been thinking a lot about like how I listen to like literally like I'll put on like Northern Lions like Contradiction Let's Play playlist, and I will literally just like play that all day, and I've been doing that for like 2 or 3 weeks, dude. And it's like I've already fucking listened to this like 10 times before. I'm just putting it on in the background because like I feel like my brain is so fried that like it needs like the constant stimuli. And like that's not good, bro. Like I gotta think critically about that and like ponder that shit is not healthy for me, and to make a change. And like in my like I know in my heart that like that's like bad for me to like consume content all the time. I guess it's just like, I don't know. I haven't been able to, absolutely not Caesar. We're absolutely not giving you the open borders. I haven't been able to like turn that into action. But then it's like me, when I make this stupid ass Civ and Chill video and I talk about it out loud, it's like I crystallize my own thoughts. And I think that is the important part about the important part about creation for me, I guess, is that we don't need that there, that I am, what's it? I don't even think these fucking Colosseum, sorry. I'm all over the place mentally. Um, yeah, the important part for me is the creation, right? And like once I create the thing, all of a sudden my brain, all my thoughts get crystallized. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't be fucking watching Northern Lions contradiction playlist like every fucking day for no goddamn reason, just to numb myself because the pain of existence is too much. Maybe I should like think about that and like face my problems instead of like trying to shut my brain down because I'm pretty sure that's not going to have a good ending. So yeah, I guess I'm kind of being like a bit hypocritical here because like I'm like, well, for me personally, when I create something, it doesn't matter if it's art or content. But everyone else should be trying to make art above content. So I guess that's a bit hypocritical. And then, like I said at the very beginning, like all art is subjective, right? So there really is like no, and we already said that like art can be a fucking urinal or a dead shark in a glass tank or like the color blue. Like all of those things can be art. So it's like I think it's like not useful to think about like, try to force everyone to make art. Maybe my content hate, which is what I came into this video with, is like once again misplaced. It's more that we should all just be thinking more about like the shit we consume, I would say. Maybe, not to preach to everyone, but that's a takeaway I'm going to take away from this is that it's not really a problem with content that I have. The problem is with me and maybe not thinking critically about like all the shit I got to think about. So, and all the fucking problems in my life. And then kind of making art is like, or, making stuff. Let's not even define it as art or content or entertainment. Just like making stuff is the way like I process my thoughts. And maybe that is like truly the true power of art / content is that it when you create it or consume it with like the right intentions, and I would say that is maybe the most important thing is the intention you go into consuming all the stuff on our screens with. Oh, like when you address that shit, I said because I'm afraid Caesar is definitely going to try and attack me soon. And I want to go to war with Caesar because I need this land. So I need to get freaking crossbows ASAP. But yeah, like when it's more about like the intention maybe that we all consume all this stuff with, because the problem isn't maybe that I consume too much like, Northern Lion Let's Plays, or maybe your problem isn't that you consume too many, what's it fucking called? Too many TikToks. The problem is maybe that like we're not thinking about it. And like if we would like, we're using it as like, we're using content as like a crutch to like not think about our problems, including like why we're consuming so much content. Because once you consume like a fuck ton of content, that becomes a problem in and of itself, right? And then it's like kind of a self-perpetuating cycle where you don't want to think about your problems, you consume more content, consume, and then we're all just like consuming shit for the sake of consumption. And I would say that is where capitalism can rear its ugly head. I mean, I can't go one video without roasting capitalism. I mean, I wrote this down in my quotes, so I'm gonna just say it. Apparently, Lewis Mumford said that capitalism makes us all wake up, look in the mirror, and ask ourselves, what part of my personality can I sell today? I'm not actually sure if that's true. I saw in an article that he got quoted as that, but then I couldn't find the actual source. But I think that's true. Like, when we're all consuming so much content, the art / content / entertainment stops being about, like, the soul and, like, the meaning behind it, but just, like, a way to make money. And, like, if we're all out here consuming, like, stuff that its purpose is to just make money, and its purpose is not to, like, make us think about our lives. We that's how we live in like the capitalist hellscape where like everything is about making money, because then art's about making money, content's about making money, everything's about making money. You know, art isn't about making you think, content isn't about giving you an emotion. It's all about making you money, which I think is bad. So that's why I think we all gotta think critically. Maybe just like, you know, just think. Maybe not even think critically. Just use the old brain. I know I gotta use the old brain more. So certainly for me, the takeaway is to use my brain more. I won't, you know, give you that homework, but that's certainly something for us all to ponder, I guess. Art versus content. Yeah. You know, once again, it's all like amorphous and it's all like definitionless. So this is more like just my own vibes and feelings. Yeah, art versus content. Okay, we're gonna end every video like we end every video with Music Corner. We're gonna talk about some music that I think is so artistic and beautiful and lovely. And this week I want to talk about Glassjaw by Aries, his new album. You know, I haven't been. I feel like you know, this album is the first album by Aries I'm like here for. You know what I mean? Like I've had a few songs by Aries in my Spotify playlist, but you know, this album I feel like is the one that I'm you know, I'm here for. I was here for the release for, and I think it's a great album. Like I would say, you know, Aries, he's like hyperpop adjacent, I guess. But I would say he's kind of more like, he's more about just like making bangers. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say he's a specific genre. I wouldn't say this album is hyperpop. It's kind of just full of jams, I would say. I wouldn't say they're bangers. That's a different type of music. But they're all full of just jams, full of like interesting production, like cool vocals, like cool bass and beats. And like the vibe is just like kind of immaculate. Like I have no idea. Honestly, I have no idea what this album is about. The lyrics are all too confusing for my pea brain. But the vibe is just so cool that I don't care. You know what I mean? I'm sure eventually I'll figure out what the fuck all the lyrics mean. But it's just like such a cool vibey album. And like just something that kind of like gets the heart rate up, gets you like hyped up. And yeah, I think it's a pretty good album. You should check it out. 3 standout songs from the album. Crack the Glass, the first song on the album, is just like gets me ready to run through a fucking wall. It's a great first song for the album. Party People, once again, just a jam. Like a lot of songs on this album, just jams, full of like cool musical choices. There's a part in this song where his voice goes crazy, and once again, I'm ready to like run through a wall. So that's hype. And then last standout song I would say is Anesthesia, which is just low-key beautiful. It's like kind of a banger, honestly, but it's also just like touches the soul, man. And that's what I'm saying. Like art has got to touch the soul. And I'm sure, you know, someone else maybe don't like the album, so it's not art to them. But I don't think art is about, you know, just one more thought on this. I don't think art is about whether something is good or not, right? Because like objectively, a canvas that's just like the color red is like bad, right? Aesthetically, at least. But I feel like art isn't about like whether it's good or not aesthetically. It's whether or not it gives you a feeling. And certainly, Glassjaw gave me a feeling. So I'm giving it an art out of 10 for my review. All right. That's an episode, guys. How is our empire doing? We settled 2 more cities, which is great. We got a religion, which is really great. Where's our religion? Introversion, our religion. And we're gearing up for war with Rome. They certainly look like they're gearing up for war with us, so they are a much bigger civ than us. They're much more technologically advanced than us, so we're certainly the underdogs in this upcoming war. but I think we can do it, guys. All right. That's an episode. Thank you all for watching my art / content / entertainment / YouTube slop, whatever you want to call it. And I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, stay sane. I'll catch you next time. Peace.